Vine was sitting in the dark corner of the room, her back pressed against the cold wall, her body shook with violent sobs, remembering everything that happened today, or the things which can happen with her. She flinched by the sound of the soft click of the door and scrambled backward in darkness. She heard the sound of his shoes against the polished floor. Vine, he called, his voice low and hesitant, reached her, and she tightly hugged herself, wrapped her arms around herself. She is scared, very scared. He pressed the switch and light filled the room. His gaze roamed all over the room. And there he found her, curled up in the corner, face tucked down, and silent tears flowing from her eyes. He walked to her slowly, not wanting to scare her more than she already is. Vine, he murmured, placing a hand on her shoulder lightly. She flinched violently as if his touch burned her skin and scrambled away from him. "Don't touch me," she yelled, her voice cracked through sobs. She looked up at him, her cheeks wet with tears. Her teary red eyes glared at him sharply. "Don't think just because we are married, you own me. You can never have me," she screamed, her voice though cracked, echoed in the silent room. He just stared at her blankly, his eyes looking at her with longing. He stepped closer and her body tensed, seeing him coming closer, her breath catching as she slid more to the wall, a futile attempt to hide from him. No matter how bold she presented herself, but still, she is scared. He closed the distance and dropped on his knees before her, his gaze piercing straight through her soul. Scared from the sudden closeness, she tried to slip past him, but his hand moved as he placed his hand on the wall, on her either side, caging her against the wall. He leaned in closer, his face mere inches away from hers, her breath hitched at the closeness. She placed her hand on his chest and tried to push him, but he captured her wrist, pinning them above her head. "Jungkook, leave me, He interrupted, silencing her by placing his finger on her lips. His thumb brushed against her cheek, wiping the tears away. Her eyes fell shut by the unexpected gesture, feeling him wiping her tears. She felt him coming closer, his breathing fanning against her face. She squeezed her eyes in fear as her hands were still in his bonds. He leaned in further and placed a soft, warm kiss on her forehead and murmured, his voice a whisper against her skin, "I love you." Her body shuddered at the contact when his lips met her skin, a strange, unexplainable feeling spreading through her. But when he uttered those words, she glared at him, yanking her hands out of his grip. She pushed him hardly. The unexpected force sent him sprawling on the ground. "What the?" he groaned, getting up. "Stop saying things you don't mean," she spat, scrambling to her feet. He stood up slowly, moving towards her, but she showed him her hand. "Maintain distance," she warned, but he kept advancing. Her eyes widened and she darted to the other side of the bed. He chuckled softly, crossing his arms. "I mean it every time I say I love you. I mean it from every cell of my being," he said, his voice laced with emotions that unsettled something in her. "Oh really? Then you wouldn't have pulled the stunt you did today. But listen to me, by opening every pore of your body, you married me forcefully. But don't ever think you can own me. I'll never accept this," she yelled, her body trembling with every word she said. Her lower lip wobbled as she burst into tears, remembering all the incidents of the day. She sank to the floor, covering her face in her hands. His eyes softened, a pang of remorse hitting him. He knew his action had been wrong, but he couldn't let her step into a hell when he could stop that. He walked towards her and knelt down in front of her. He held her hand, pulling it away from her face, but she snatched her hands away from him. Stay away, don't you understand? She cried, yanking his hands away. He stared at her and then at his empty hands. As he slowly took his hands back, "Okay, I'm here," he said, tilting his head to look at her, though she was still looking down, sniffling softly. "Why, I know what I did today was wrong, but I love you truly." And he paused, staring deep into her eyes. "I don't own you. You own me, sweetheart. Every inch of me," he whispered, and for a second she looked at him, really looked at him. Her gaze met his, and he smiled softly. "I love you, Ryan. Just give me a chance. I swear you won't regret it." "And what if I don't? Will you force me?" she challenged, her gaze pursuing him. "I will kill myself before forcing you." "Then what the hell are you doing right now?" she snapped, her anger barely controlled. He looked at her, his eyes now cold. "It was important." "No, it was not. It's just your fragile male ego couldn't handle me marrying someone else, rejecting you. You destroyed everything." Her words snapped something in him as he rose on his knees and pulled her to him, grabbing her shoulders firmly. "When you can marry a man you barely know, then why can't you give a chance to the man who loves you madly?" "It's my choice, and stay away. Do you have a hearing problem?" she said, struggling in his grip. He clenched his jaw, exhaling heavily, then slowly released her. She sat back, rubbing her shoulders as if his touch burned her. "Don't tell me you love him," he asked through gritted teeth. She glanced up at him, her gaze now sharp and defiant. "Will you leave me if I do?" she shot back. He looked at her, his eyes red. He replied almost immediately, "No, I will kill him." He uttered those words with such intensity, sending shivers down her spine. And before she could say anything, he got up from the floor and with long, deliberate strides, he left the room, the door slamming shut with a loud thud. Wayne stared at the closed door while recounting everything that happened. Jungkook, her father's biggest rival in underworld and business world. She had no idea how and when his dark obsession with her has blossomed, but he had pursued her relentlessly from their college times. She had always kept him at arm's length, terrified of further angering her even distant father. He was not very fond of her already, but still, she obeyed his every decision in the desperate hope to get his love. And like that, her father arranged her wedding to the northern capos here. And Wine couldn't deny when her father asked her with some love, and she agreed, unaware she was merely a pawn traded for business and standing in the underworld. Jungkook, however, couldn't let it happen, not when she don't love the groom, not when it was not her choice, but forced upon her. He would have never interfered if she had genuinely loved the groom. But Wine is unaware of all this. She only saw his love as obsession, tainted by the poisonous words her father had fed her against him, which only made it difficult for her to believe Jungkook. She just thinks he ruined everything. Wine slowly opened her eyes, but as she stared, she felt her hand heavy. She looked down only to find him sleeping on the sofa beside her bed, while his hand was clasping hers. She snatched her hand away. The sudden movement stirred him. His eyes fluttered open. He glanced at her and sat upright, rubbing the sleep from his eyes and ruffling his hair, while she kept her piercing gaze on him. He looked at her softly before taking her hand in his again. "Wine, I'm sorry for yesterday. I'll never behave like that again. I'm sorry. Please, just give me one chance," he said, his voice full of hope. Wine stared at him for a few seconds before her expressions hardened and she yanked her hand out of his grip. "Please, don't start your this drama early in the morning. My head is already aching." She muttered the last sentence. Without sparing him a glance, she walked into the bathroom. Jungkook Jungkook sat in the living room, immersed in his work. On his laptop, Wayne stood behind him, watching him for a long time, thinking of ways to get out of here. Finally, frustrated, she strode in front of him and stood there, glaring at him sharply. "I'm going out," she announced, her eyes scanning him for any reaction. But when he didn't stare, she repeated herself, louder, biting pressure on each word. "I am going out." He finally looked up, a small smile on his lips. "Why are you telling me, sweetheart? You can go wherever you want. You are the lady of this house," he said, giving her a soft smile. She was stunned for a moment. She expected he will cage her in this house and will not let her go anywhere. "I'm not asking you," she grumbled angrily and walked out, stomping her foot on the ground like a child. Van was driving, her focus on the road, but mind wandering on Jungkook's thought. How could he let me go so easily? Doesn't he know that I can run away from here? But then, in her rear view mirror, she saw it, the answer of her every question. She cursed loudly. His men were trailing behind her from a safe distance, but she recognized their menacing black car. "You're here to follow me, right? Then follow me." She pressed her foot on gas pedal and the car leaped forward. As she drove recklessly, she made them run behind her in the whole city in circles until they lost her sight, leaving them to wonder where she vanished. She parked her car in front of her father's mansion. She stepped out of the car and almost ran towards the entrance, when suddenly a car pulled over in front of her, causing her to step back. And the next second, she saw him stepping out of his car in his all glory, moving towards her. "Leave my way," she growled, her anger barely contained. "You can go anywhere, but not your dad's territory. It's not safe," he said, his voice calm, hiding the inner turmoil he was having before. "It's you who is not safe for me. You..." She stopped, her eyes widened as she saw more cars pulling over, circling them, and soon they were surrounded by almost 100 men in black, with dangerous guns in their hand like they were under some severe attack. "What the hell?" she muttered, her eyes wide in disbelief. "You don't have any choice, Ryan. Come by yourself, or you want me to carry you?" He declared, leaving no room for argument. She so wanted to smack his head and wipe that ugly smirk from his face. She muttered series of curses that glaring at him and walked, stomping her feet towards the car. She got inside her car, but next second she found him in her car too, sliding into the passenger seat beside her. She looked at him angrily. "What are you doing here?" "Give me a ride," he said sweetly, her eyes widened for a second before she shouted. "What? I mean, can you drive me home? Actually, I had a dream that someday I'd go on a long drive with my wife and she would drive. I know we are not going on long drive, but I can adjust." Days melted into weeks, with Jungkook trying to show his love for Ryan, but Ryan always turned him down. She was angry at him and at the fact that he forced her in this so-called marriage by pointing gun at her supposed groom. But something shifted between them, and Ryan was getting confused because he was nothing like her father told her. Cunning, selfish, animalistic, manipulative monster. She has seen none of it in him. Ryan was reading a book in her bedroom when she heard a soft knock on her door. She sighed heavily, slamming the book shut, already knowing who is on the door. "If I say don't come in, will you not come?" Jungkook peeked inside, looked at her, smiling seamlessly. "Of course not. I'll just keep knocking until you'll allow me." Ryan threw her head back in exasperation. This man is a walking headache for her. "Please come inside, Your Highness," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And and Jungkook walked inside shamelessly. "What do you want today?" she asked, as every day he does new drama in the name of showing his love for her, but all he managed was to irritate her. "I have something for you on the terrace," he replied, and Vian rolled her eyes, already anticipating his next drama. "I don't want it, whatever it is." "Vian, please, I'm sure you'll like it. If you didn't like it, then you can come back. Just take a look. I've spent 4 hours doing all preparation." "Did I ask you?" she snapped sharply, and Jungkook shook his head. "Then get lost from here and let me breathe in peace for some time." She again reopened her book to read it. "You asked for it," he declared like an order. Vine glanced at him, furrowing her brows, and before she could understand what he meant, he bent down and picked her up in his arms, and the book fell from her hands. "Jungkook, what the hell? Put me down. I said put me down, you freak," she yelled, but it was useless. He walked out, completely unaffected by her furious curses. "Sweetheart, your anger is going to melt like an ice when you'll see the terrace." He grinned, which only fueled her anger, and she pulled his hair. "Why leave my hair? You don't want your husband to go bald, do you?" he asked, groaning in pain, but Vian only pulled his hair more. "No, go bald. I don't care. Now put me down or I'm making you bald this instant." "Just 1 second, he said, and placed her on her feet on the terrace. She swiftly punched him on his arms before moving away from him. "I got myself an abusive wife," he mumbled, rubbing his arms as if she had severely injured him. "You brought this upon yourself," she scoffed, but her eyes widened looking at the terrace. The terrace was transformed into the heaven, beautifully decorated, and in the center was the table, which was adorned with delicate flowers. Everything was looking magical, especially the low-lying smoke that curled around their feet, a mystical fog, exactly as she had once long ago dreamed her perfect date would be. Jungkook smiled, seeing her, who was looking at everything with awe. Jungkook mentally patted himself on the back. "You liked it? I knew it." Her expressions hardened again, her smile fading. She looked at him, and the smile vanished from his face. "What do you want to prove by doing all this?" she asked, her voice sharp, cutting through the silence. "When you just what, Jungkook? You just what?" She cut him off, her voice rising. "What do you think by doing all this?" "First, you did all the drama in my wedding, then married me against my will. Now, you are forcing me to love you by doing all the..." She screamed and threw the decorative piece on the floor, shattering it in pieces. Jungkook stood still, staring at her, until the sharp sound of glass breaking jolted him back to his senses. "Why, Stop right there. Stop treating me like a doll. Not everything will happen according to your will. You were able to force that marriage on me, but you won't be able to force your love on me," she yelled, her eyes welled up with tears. Her knees gave out as she sank to the floor, cradling her face in her palm, her wrenching sobs tugged painfully in his heart. "I'm forcing her. I'm forcing myself on her, my feelings, this marriage, everything." These thoughts echoed in his mind like a broken tape as he approached her weeping figure and crouched down in front of her. "Vian, I'm sorry. I didn't think like this. I didn't. No, I was forcing you. I'm sorry. I won't do anything from now on that hurts you. I'm sorry. Please stop crying," he whispered, his voice laced with remorse, but she was still crying. He hesitated, then slowly he placed the tentative hand on her shoulder, and she stilled at his touch. "Don't touch me," she screamed and jerked his hand away. He lost his balance and a shard of glass burst his arm. He groaned and her eyes widened when she saw the blood seeping through his wound on his arms. "Jungkook, I'm sorry," she whispered, her hands reaching out to touch his wound, but he raised his hand to stop her. It's okay, Ryan, and I'm sorry for everything. He slowly stood up, and she followed, her eyes still fixed on his bleeding arm. He looked around at the shattered surrounding, and then looked at her. His gaze softened. I'm sorry for this too, he whispered, and she frowned. Before she could say anything, she found herself being carried in his arms. But this time, she didn't say anything. He slowly set her down on her feet before looking at her, and when her gaze met his, she found his eyes moist and didn't know why she felt like crying too. You could have gotten hurt because of the glass pieces, that's why. And I'm sorry, from now on, I won't bother you unnecessarily. And believe me or not, I didn't want to force anything on you, but situation didn't allow it. He whispered the last words, but she heard it. But before she could say anything, he turned and walked away, leaving her alone. All night, she was just thinking about him. She was feeling guilty for pushing him. Because of her, he got hurt. It was past midnight when she heard the sound of soft footsteps. She slowly opened her eyes, staring at the closed door. What are you, Jungkook? She whispered to herself. Jungkook descended the stairs, clad in a crisp three-piece suit, heading towards the main door when a voice stopped him. Jungkook stopped. He gulped. He was going out so he didn't have to face her, but now he took a deep breath and slowly turned around. Where are you going? She asked, her voice filled with unfamiliar concern. Office, I guess. I mean, without breakfast. I'm not hungry. He turned to leave, but she grabbed his wrist, halting him on his steps. I'm sorry for yesterday. You got hurt because of me. I made breakfast for you as a token of apology. I'm sorry. She blabbered in one breath, and a small smile spread across his face, and he slowly walked into the dining room. Wine served them both. Jungkook took the first bite and smiled in delight. The breakfast was delicious. Wine noticed it and smiled to herself and began eating her breakfast. After breakfast, as he was walking out, she again held his hand. What? He asked, and Wine left his hand, looking here and there nervously. Don't take it as a sign for something stupid. I was feeling guilty because you got hurt because of me. We are still the same, okay? He breathed heavily and nodded his head. Yeah, he muttered and walked out of the house. It was night. Wine was in the living room with her laptop on her lap. She was fully engrossed in her work until she heard the heavy footsteps followed by the low soft groans. She glanced up and her eyes slightly widened, seeing his arm bleeding badly. She placed her laptop on the sofa and rushed to him. What happened? How he got this much injured? She asked, leading him to the sofa, making him sit. She took the first aid box from the drawer and started treating him. Her brows furrowed in concern while he was just adoring her. He felt happy seeing she at least cared for him. Slowly, he hissed in pain to get more sympathy from her. I'm sorry, I'll do carefully. She muttered and slowly wrapped the bandage on his wound. How this happened? Actually, some man attacked on the port to steal the container, which were going overseas. She nodded, keeping everything back in the first aid box. Wan was cooking pasta for herself while thinking about Jungkook. Nowadays, he's coming home daily injured. She was getting worried for him. She was in her thoughts when she heard the conversation between the mates. I never thought he will turn out to be a sick lover. I mean, he was always so heartless, without any emotion. Right, I also thought of him as a heartless person who only knew how to kill his enemies mercilessly. But look at him now, total lovesick. What are you two talking about? Tell me too. She asked, curious. Both maids looked at her in disbelief. You don't know? Ria shook her head. Do you live under a rock? She hissed slowly while Ria smiled, showing her all teeth. My boyfriend works for Sir John. He saw his boss deliberately telling his man to injure him, so he could have a little attention of madam. Otherwise, she won't even look at him. How romantic. Wan looked at them in disbelief. Romantic? This is psychotic. She looked at the pasta and felt her appetite vanished. She turned off the gas and covered the pan and walked out of the kitchen. The maids went silent upon seeing her. As they didn't saw her in the kitchen, she looked at them and walked away. She was continuously walking in her room back and forth restlessly. The thing which she just heard in the kitchen was making her feel uneasy. She also asked how he is getting injured like this frequently, but he always dismissed the topic, and she didn't push further, thinking it's related to his underworld business. But she never in her worst dream thought something like this. He is hurting himself for her. It was enough. She can't wait for the meeting to end. She has to talk to him. She can't let him do this madness. She walked towards his office. Pushing the door open, she walked in. He looked up from his desk, but before he could comprehend anything, she held his hand and dragged him out of there before saying, "The meeting is dismissed." She dragged him all the way up to the terrace. He asked her several times what happened, but she didn't say anything. When they reached the terrace, she dragged him further and made him sit beside her. Silence followed. She was staring at the twinkling city lights of the building beneath, which appeared so small from this height. And then he finally broke the silence. What happened, Vayan? He asked, and Vayan looked at him for a second, then chuckled, shaking her head. She laughed softly in amusement, and soon, while laughing, tears rolled down from her eyes, and she started crying, burying her face in her palms. Jungkook looked at her worriedly. Vayan, you're scaring me now. She glanced up at him and asked, when did I got myself an insane lover? I always dreamt of having one, but never thought I'll get someone who loved me like crazy. Vayan muttered in amusement. Tears trickled down her cheeks. She smiled softly while wiping them, while Jungkook stared at her, perplexed. Why did you do that? She asked, her voice now serious. I did what? He asked, trying to appear clueless. But maybe he knew where this was heading. Those wounds and injuries, you didn't get them from fight. You made them yourself, she said, glancing up at him, her gaze sharp, and Jungkook felt tongue-tied. May I know why? She demanded, and Jungkook, for the first time in his life, felt intimidated in front of her. The way her gaze was burning holes in him, it scared him. He swallowed hard. Why, it was... He stuttered, not getting enough courage to tell her the truth, when she cut him off in the middle. You love me so much, right? She asked, and he was caught off guard by her sudden question, and the way she had asked him, almost emotionlessly. Tell me, Jungkook, you love me so much, right? She yelled and stood up in front of him, looking straight into his eyes, her eyes blazing. Can you die for me? She asked, and Jungkook also stood up, closing the distance between them. Their eyes met, and she held the eye contact. Without a second thought, he exclaimed so easily, like it was just another normal thing in the world, while Vine was baffled. She stared at him incredulously. She brushed her hairs back and gripped them tightly. He is now playing with her sanity. You know what? Just jump already. She messed her hair. Her head was aching from all the bullshit, and she walked towards the door to go down. But then her steps halted in the middle when she heard unmistakable footsteps going towards the railing. She turned around and found him slowly walking towards the end. Her eyes widened and she ran towards him. Grabbing his arm, she pulled him back, but she lost her balance and fell down with him on the top. But what made her heart skip a beat? That he had cradled her head in his hand at the last moment, so she don't get hurt. She pushed him back and got up, dusting her clothes, and then looked at him, who was standing there like a model in all his glory, like he wasn't just about to jump from the terrace. Are you mad? I just wanted to teach you a lesson for hurting yourself. But you got ready to die. Listen to me, never do that again. First learn to love yourself. Promise me, you'll never do that again. She extended her palm. He looked at her, all worried for him. His lips curled up into a small smile. He took a step towards her and pulled her closer to him, her hands on his chest. Her body pressed against him. For God's sake, I was not going to jump, Vine. I know you didn't mean it. You just insulted my position in the underworld, but I liked it, that you care for me. She tried to pull away, but he held her more tightly. She looked at him, irritated. Don't assume things. I also care for dogs on the street. His smile dropped for a second and he left her and stepped back, clutching his heart like she had just stabbed his heart. Ouch, that hurts, my love. Vine raised her brows, unimpressed. I'm glad it does. Jungkook, on a serious note, don't hurt yourself again. Please, I beg you, don't do things like this. You're just giving me headache by doing all this, not evoking feelings for you in my heart. Jungkook stepped forward, his gaze locked into hers. So what should I do to develop feelings in your heart for me? Nothing. Just accept it. We are not meant to be, she said, and he clenched his fist, his veins prominent. She gulped nervously, noticing the change in his demeanor. He stepped back and simply walked out from there, and she breathed in relief. Sometimes he looks scary. That night, when she went to bed, she again felt him kissing her forehead. He does this every day. And without her knowing, she started liking his small gesture. And nowadays, she waits for him to come and kiss her forehead, whisper I love you to her, so she can finally sleep. It would be a lie to say she don't feel anything for him. But the way he had married her, she can't forget that day, how much helpless she felt. One was reading her book in the living room. It was midnight. In the name of book, she was waiting for him. When she heard the sudden commotion outside, hushed whispers, and then she saw him walking in, his clothes drenched in blood. He walked straight to his room. He didn't notice her, and she hurriedly ran behind him. And before he could close the door, she pushed it open and stepped in, surprising him. Ryan, you are awake? He whispered, almost to him. She stepped closer and glared at him. What is this? Didn't I tell you to stop this madness? God, I have to take you to the psychiatrist. You are turning into a psycho. Just look at you. Her words got cut short when he pinned her to the wall and pressed his palm against her mouth. She stared at him wide-eyed. Now you'll listen and I'll talk, okay? he said, and she found herself nodding without her knowledge. Good girl, he murmured, his gaze softening as he tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Her eyes fell shut at his touch. This time, it wasn't me. I wouldn't dare to do what my wife doesn't like. At this, her eyes fluttered open, her gaze locked into his, dazed. Blood had always disgusted her, terrified her, but now she is unable to push him away. She exhaled in disappointment when he stepped back. Someone attacked me when I was coming back from office, and guess what? They were from Northern Mafia clan. Her eyes widened just a little in disbelief, and Jungkook nodded his head. Your ex-fiancé. Are you okay? You are drenched in blood. He is very dangerous. Relax, sweetheart. No one is more dangerous than your husband. She frowned and he slowly unbuttoned his shirt, taking it off, revealing his well-built, chiseled body. And she swallowed, her gaze momentarily roaming on his body. It's their blood, not mine. I just got some scratches, so you should go and get some sleep. It's already midnight, he said, and she nodded, walking towards the door, but stopped hearing him. And don't worry too much for me. I'm fine. I don't worry. I know, but let me be happy in my assumption. She shook her head and walked out, leaving him smiling on his own. It was past midnight when she woke up by the unusual sound. She heard the sound of footsteps, and before she could make a sense of it, sirens blared in the mansion, indicating that mansion is under attack. She scrambled off the bed, fear rushed in her body as she frantically searched for something to protect her. But before that, someone barged inside her room, causing her to scream in horror. That man strode towards her and grabbed her hand in a steel grip and started dragging her out. Leave me, I said leave me. She pushed him hardly and he collided with the wall. And she tried to run, but he grabbed her hair, yanking her back and slapped her hard, and she fell on the floor, palming her cheek. Tears rolled down from her eyes in agony. I see, you have grown wings here, but don't worry, I'll cut them all. She stared at him in shock. The voice was too familiar, like, Daniel? She breathed, and he chuckled darkly and removed his mask. Yes, baby, me. He mocked, and she clenched her fist in anger. How dare you slap me? She shouted loudly, and he crouched down in front of her and grabbed her hair, forced her to look at him. I dare to do so many things with you, but first, let's get out of here. No, I won't go anywhere with you. She tried to remove his hand, but he gripped her hairs more tightly, causing her to yelp in pain. I don't remember asking for your opinion. You will do as I say, got it? You were pretending to be with me before, right? She gasped through pain, and he laughed like a maniac. Oh yes, only because your father told me that her lovely daughter would create lots of drama to marry me. So I played along like a good fiancé. That new? Oh please, I don't have time for this, let's go. He forced her on her feet, clutching her hairs tightly in his fist and started dragging her. But then, a gunshot was heard. Daniel released her and fell on the floor, clutching his bleeding leg, a low guttural groan escaping him. Wang turned her head to see Jungkook walking towards her. He crouched down in front of her, his hands cupped her face, his touch gentle. Wang, are you okay? I'm sorry. He wiped her tears. She looked at him, then in a desperate need of comfort, threw her arms around him and hugged him tightly. Burying her face in his chest, she cried, holding him tightly. Jungkook wrapped his one arm around her securely, and with the other, he shot Daniel 2 more times. She flinched in his arms at the sound of gunshot, but he held her more tightly, pulling her even more closer. She tried to turn her head, but he cradled the back of her head from his other hand, holding her fast against him. You are okay, sweetheart, stop crying, he's gone, he murmured, rubbing her back to calm her. He slipped his one hand under her knees and scooped her up effortlessly in his arms and carried her to his room. He placed her on the bed and tried to pull away, but she wouldn't let him go. He looked at her and she blinked her tear-filled eyes and shook her head. Please don't go, I'm scared. He sighed slowly and lowered himself on the bed beside her, and she moved towards him and wrapped her trembling arms around his waist and placed her head on his chest, sniffling softly. He wrapped his one arm around her waist. With his free hand, he retrieved his phone and called Yuan. Take care of everything and tie that Daniel in the basement and double the security around mansion. He placed his phone on the nightstand after hanging up and sighed, looking at her, who was still crying. Why are you still crying? He asked, his voice gentle. She sniffles. Her tears continued to fall as she snuggled deeper into his chest. I was scared. I thought I'd die today. Why? Don't say like that. He pulled her away, just enough to look at her face. No one is touching you until I am alive. Whether you decide to stay with me or not, you'll always be under my protection. He stroked her hairs back from her face, wiping her tears away and pulled her back in his arms. His chin rested on her head, his arms wrapped around her securely. Now stop crying. I never knew you were such a crybaby. Wine pulled away, her eyes angry, brimming with fresh tears. You mean to say I'm irritating you? Get away from me. I didn't mean that. I just wanted you to stop crying. Okay, I'm sorry. He said immediately and pulled her back as his hand gently stroked her back. You better be. Jungkook, she called softly. He hummed. My head is hurting, she murmured, and his hand traveled to her hair as his fingers gently stroked her hairs and massaged her scalp gently. Is it okay now? She hummed, snuggling more into him. Jungkook, if only you have approached me in other ways, didn't marry me like that, then I would also be in love with you, insanely. The words escaped her lips before she could stop them, and his hands paused in her hair before resuming its gentle strokes. She bit her tongue, realizing what she just said, so she just closed her eyes to avoid any confrontation. The comfort and warmth of his embrace lulled her to sleep. Vian's eyes fluttered open. She squinted her eyes, the sudden light blinding her. She pressed her palm against her eyes. Someone please turn off the lights, she said, snuggling into pillow. It's not light, it's sunlight. And it's morning, so get up. He walked inside the room with breakfast. He settled the tray on the coffee table and then looked at her, who was still buried deep in the soft haven of her pillow, sleeping soundly. He didn't have a heart to wake her up, but it's already 10 in the morning. Wine, get up. It's late. He snatched her blanket and she rolled to another side, and he sighed heavily. He walked to the other side. Finding no other option, he bent down and carried her in his arms, causing her to shriek in surprise. Jungkook, what the hell? Put me down. Let me sleep. What is your problem? He carried her to the bathroom and placed her in the bathtub filled with cold water, and her awed sleep flew away in seconds. You jerk, she yelled, splashing water on him while he laughed, looking at her, all drenched in water like a soaked cat. Freshen up. Take your time. I'm outside. They sat on the couch, having their breakfast, while Wine was continuously glaring at him for the stunt he just pulled in the morning. Stop it now, I might be having holes in my body, he joked, and she glared at him and threw a strawberry at him, which he caught in time and looked at her amused. Don't you think you are being too friendly with me? He asked, and realization dawned upon her. She's treating him like he is her friend from childhood. It's just, she trailed off, thinking of an excuse. I was just being civil with you. He nodded, stuffing the remaining pancake in his mouth. Being civil, me looking at me like you're planning my murder in your little head. She gasped inaudibly but decided to stay quiet and focused on her breakfast. Jungkook cleared his throat, gaining her attention. Wen looked at him. You said something yesterday before you went to sleep that if I have approached you in other way and didn't marry you like that, you would have been in love with me. Wen stared at the floor. Suddenly it appeared more interesting to her than the man sitting in front of her. I just want you to know I never wanted to impose myself on you. Didn't want to take you by force, but the situation didn't allow me. She looked at him puzzled, frowning her brows. What do you mean? I knew what kind of a man Daniel is and what is going on behind the facade of marriage, and I couldn't let you go in that hell. Not when I knew I can stop that, so I did what I felt right to do. He completed, and she was speechless. She always considered him her culprit, thought of him as some obsessed lover. But no, he was more than that. He was her protector. You did it to save me. He nodded. Then why didn't you tell me before? You wouldn't have believed me. She fell silent. He was right. She wouldn't have believed him. Hell, she wouldn't have given him a chance to talk, let alone believe him. So what now? She asked, almost mindlessly. He placed his spoon down and stood up from his place and walked to her. He carefully placed her plate on the table, then knelt down in front of her, taking her hands in his, and she looked at him, suddenly nervous. Whatever you want, but fine. All I want to say is, if you'll give me a chance, I promise you'll not regret it. I promise to give it all, to change for good, to change for you. He confessed, his each word a promise which tugged something deep in her heart. Even after I hurted you all this while, she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. He traced his thumb on her knuckles, shaking his head. It was not your fault. You are not obligated to love me just because I love you. It's your decision. All I'm asking for is one chance to be the man you deserve. Her eyes welled up with tears as she bit her lower lip, struggling to hold back the sudden rush of emotions. I think I'm falling for you, she whispered, and he smiled in delight. I promise to change this doubt in future, he said, getting up from his knees and pulled her in a hug, and she slowly wrapped her arms around him. I love you, he whispered. I'll think about it, she replied, and he laughed, shaking his head. Silly. And you love this silly girl? Of course I do.